You so well, mate.
French.
The case of the wonderful.
We're recording, Rav.
Tremendous.
When did
you do? When were you in Victoria? You were there, you were the problem.
I'm getting it from
Victoria boys. You were Victoria boys. I think I was there a little bit before you. I lived in Seattle.
Are we ready, everybody?
Yes, you're ready. Rav, we're recording. We're recording.
Yeah.
Yes, you're
I think
ready.
I did send you the-
Yeah, we're recording now. Thanks, Rav.
Beautiful, man.
Thank you.
My brother's still alive.
We can start.
Your mom.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Gentlemen,
Mom's name again? Sonia.
guys,
Sonia, that's right.
time to learn a little bit. Thank you, Brian. Chaim, thank you.
I have to give you a profit. Rob, I have to give you a
Thank
profit.
God, yeah.
Many more.
Amen. The funny thing is we
We need the Jewish nation to thrive.
have another one on the way.
Mazel
My daughter that lives here is also expecting.
Mazel
In a few weeks' time,
Mazel tov.
one overseas is named after my father, Abraham Koppel. My father's name, the first name after my father. Yeah,
It's not a bad name to
Yeah,
name your
yeah.
child after.
yeah.
He was terrific before.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah, so that was a very big privilege to be there and catch the fresh. He came to one of the Shiur. Yeah, that's right.
He used to be on
He
Zoom.
came to the Shiur sometimes. He actually came once or twice.
He
Yeah.
came, huh?
The last one that I was here, before COVID, I mean, it's a long time.
Michael used to always encourage him to come. Sometimes he came, sometimes he listened at home on Zoom. It's 46B, line 10. Those that are using a Koran, 46B, line 10. If you
Fine stuff.
you want me to find it for you there? It would be Mem Vav Amud Beis.
I'm on the page. What the word?
The word is Boy Rami Bar Chama. Rami Bar Chama asked the question.
Go for them, you know.
That I don't know because I haven't seen it in my pages at different formats. That's the only thing I can't help with because I've got my reading glasses. If he sends me that, I wouldn't be able to see a thing. I used to have good eyesight. I was the only one in my family without glasses.
Years ago, the cataracts that I only
Shalom.
But they say with the cataracts out, you got better vision, eh?
but reading is
But reading's the one. Yeah.
Guys reading, this I
Yeah.
can see actually.
Yes, you can see. I actually couldn't make it bigger. And in fact,
Can't see the link, man.
can you not see the link? Oh,
Link on the.
I think you have to go higher up. I didn't put a link. I didn't put a reminder link this time. Yeah, sorry about that. But I can give you one from find the previous one. You got it.
Yeah, we can
Have
start.
you got it? Okay.
This is a joint group. No,
Uh,
it won't be there.
If you go to the last year, which would have been about
Oh,
the
there,
beginning,
before you went.
yeah, before I went, I think 1st of July,
There we go.
because this week I didn't actually post a link. I just posted a reminder, but no link. We're ready, everybody.
Oh, so this thing is-
Already for Mashiach.
All ready for Mashiach. It is 46B. So you want to follow in also, Shimon, you can move closer because Alan's looking from the left. So if you want to see from mine, I'm getting it on the phone.
No, I got it from Mina Bacher.
Mina Batchana, yeah, L'chaim.
Harry, what's Harry's name?
Harry Merrills.
Yeah, he fell down the steps.
Oi.
No. Yeah, I went to visit him,
Oi.
the hospital. What's a shop?
So where's he? Also
So he's
Lichfield.
home now,
He's home.
but
Yeah.
one second. He's in the breaks and all this stuff. Yeah, so I don't know what his name.
Let me see if I have it on my phone.
Refuah Shlema.
Harold.
And Ruth, Jules
Refuah Shlema to my sister, Vila Rivka Bat Rachel.
Vila Rivka Bas.
Yeah.
Rachel.
Yehuda ben Zundel. Jules Kramer.
Harry Merrill.
Yosef Menucha Bas Esther.
Oh, thanks.
I thought I had Harry's Hebrew name, but I don't actually have it yet. So I'll just say it in English. L'chaim. L'chaim, everybody should be well and we should hear good news. And Hashem should protect Eretz Yisrael and all the people inside it and bring Mashiach. Yeah.
Amen.
It's about a 3-second lag. You hear that? You can be late for the share and still catch everything. Okay, so let's be picking it up from little bit of context because it's been quite a few weeks. We were dealing with the laws that occur when idolatry. So obviously it is defiled in a certain sense. Can it be used for a mitzvah? Can it be used for voluntary purposes? What is the level of the, how would you call it, the prohibition for something? And there were many different laws in the last few pages that when it comes to man-made things, disconnected articles or objects that are not are more vulnerable and sensitive to being defiled as avoid natural. If you take something natural, when people use things that were initially designated or not designated, then they don't have the power to put in if you are not, that this kind of a situation can come along. That because there's some people who unfortunately are attracted after the wrong kind of deity and go and worship the son that God created, we can't say that. Then it becomes prohibited for other people to utilize and benefit. And there were many examples brought with regard to natural things, because in those days there were many natural things that people would serve, mountains and hills and animals and various different natural things. And we had a whole discussion until now about various different natural things. And then the Gemora got a little bit more specific and it started to talk about where something natural. So if you're saying cannot become prohibited from one person because another went and used it for avodah zarah, what about anything that became joined to it? So if somebody put cladding, for instance, on a hill or a mountain or a rock face, to have a connection to the thing that it's put on. So in other words, just like the thing itself can't become contaminated or defiled but avodah zarah by idolatrous service, and somebody else pull the thing that is attached to be part of the discussion. And then the Gemora started to talk about detached things, sometimes even strange things like food items. What about people found very interesting things to serve? In those, there was a time, we know we've spoken about it, that avodah zarah, that idolatrous worship was much stronger in the world, and people found some extremely strange things to serve. There was even some people who would serve an egg. They would decide that's some kind of religious symbol. And if a person then, we were discussing in I think the very last year, went and set up an egg on a platform so that other people should bow down to it or serve it in a way of spiritual worship, what happens? What happens if it's designated that way? What happens if it is worshipped or isn't worshipped? And there were all different
But there are
things spoken of around it. Yeah.
people using symbols.
Mm.
They believe in God, they believe in Hashem.
Yeah.
But they believe, for example, in the red streams that bring them some.
But so you're talking about a muzzle symbol. That's
No,
not
but
your
it also shows
a skula.
of
Yeah.
Avodah Zarah.
Okay, so
You
the question
rely
is,
on other
yeah.
stuff. In the Torah, never mentioned that you got something like this will give you extra strength of connection to Hashem. What happened in Egypt, for example, with the animals, with the lamb. The lamb wasn't their God, but the lamb was one of the way to connect.
well,
to them.
basically, if you want to go into the basics of it, what you're saying also is that one of the challenges of all human beings is that because we can't always relate to the spiritual things are not tangible to us, we always are looking for some kind of physical manifestation or reflection. And the fact is that if you study, let's say, Kabbalah or those parts of Torah that do describe to us what goes on in the higher spheres, in the heavenly realm, in the higher spheres, what you do find is that the physical world that we live in is to a degree some kind of reflection, some kind of manifestation of the spiritual world. So in other words, when people see things in the physical world, and those things appear to be majestic, or how would you call it, or seem to possess certain kinds of powers, sometimes there is a good reason for it. It's because of the fact that that which you're looking at is actually some form of reflection of something on a higher level. Like we don't understand, for instance, the way Ezekiel, Yechezkel describes the Masa, Merkava, the vision of the chariots. But for instance, one of the things spoken of over there was that one of the things he saw was Pnei Shor, the face of an ox, Pnei Aryeh, the face of a lion, Pnei Nesher, the face of an eagle, the face of a man. And we know that, I mean, you can ask all your game park enthusiasts that there is something pretty majestic about the face of a lion or the face of an ox. It doesn't mean that it's avodah zarah, that it's automatically idolatrous. However, people have to be careful because there's different ways that we can relate to something. And one has to know, according to Torah, according to halacha, what is considered a worshipping something. In other words, chas v'sholem, worshipping it as opposed to the recognition or the worship that there's only one God in the world. And what is considered recognizing that God created majestic things in his world. It's two different concepts. And in the scope of what is actually avodah zarah, or straight worship, or worshiping things beyond Hashem himself, the Torah gives more leeway to humanity in general than it does to the Jewish people. In other words, there's a certain amount, and it's not easy to define because the halachic authorities do have discussions or differences on exactly how to define it. But there's a certain slack, you could call it, that is given to the people of the world outside of Am Yisrael, where they are allowed to look at the world and to see very powerful things like the sun and the moon and the stars and nature and the ecosystem, whatever. And they are allowed to some extent, recognize the inherent power of all of these things in a system that is called shittuf, almost like, it sounds like partnership. In other words, to see them as so-called powers in the world that have gotten agency from Hashem above. A Jew, however, is obligated to understand the concept of Hashem Echad, that Hashem is one. We say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. That listen, Israel, Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. The name, the Shem Havaya, the name of God, which has the two Yuds, or Yud, Kei, Vav, Kei, those names are a reference to something that's much higher than the natural order of the world. The name Elokim or Elokeinu is a reference to the name of Hashem, which is the name that reveals itself in the world and in nature. And we as part of what we try to achieve in the spiritual service that we do as Yidden, as Jewish people, is that it's all the same thing. You'll know this day and bring it to your heart or absorb it. Ki Hashem hu Elokim. That Elokim and Hashem is the same thing. As powerful and magnificent as nature looks, as amazing as the world is in terms of the way that it operates, Mother Nature or whatever it is, or anything in the world that is majestic and powerful, at the end of the day, all of that is absolutely the same as the Shem Havaya, as the God, the one God who is the creator of the world, who created everything and continues to create everything each day. As we say in our davening, he renews in his goodness each day, always, continually, Ma'aseh Bereshis, the work of creation. So we have a higher standard than the rest of the world is obligated, where we have to understand that even that's called also Hashgacha Pratit, which means divine providence, down to the last detail, where we believe that even the tiniest little creature crawling on a leaf is completely based on exactly what's Hashem's will. Hashem didn't create a system and walk away from that system and say, now that I've set up a system, like a technology man who said, now that I've set up a system, I've got my app running all over the world, and I've developed it in such a way that it's tweaked. We've tweaked out all the glitches or whatever, but I don't have to be involved in it 24/7. I don't have to be absolutely directly involved with every factor of every experience. Amazing power is involved from the absolute greatest to the absolute. And that's why to us, serving anything else is in direct contrast to recognizing that Hashem Echad, that the oneness of Hashem is in everything. And that's actually the advantage. We're now in the 9 days of the difficult times in the world, because sometimes in the darkness, we're actually able to see more light. We're able to see more miracles and more lights and more understanding. Please God, it should be without pain and without suffering and difficulty. But we're able to see in all of that darkness that at the end of the day, although sometimes it's very painful and difficult, Hashem does run his world. He runs his world and he runs it his way, and we just have to do what we have to do.
That's why we daven every day.
And that's why we daven every day. Exactly. Yeah. But it also says, and that's pertinent to what we're doing now in the 9 days, it says that after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, obviously the Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim, that was the paradigm place of a revelation of godliness in the world, because God is everywhere, not just in the Beis Hamikdash. God is in the whole world. So what was unique about the temple, what was unique about the Holy of Holies, was that was a place where it was obvious. As it might be that God is in the desert, in the other side of the world, and he's in Arizona in the United States, and he's every single part of the world, at the bottom of the ocean, on the top of the sky. So what was unique about the Beit HaMikdash was that showed you a clear demonstration. Over there was a revealed when the Beit HaMikdash stood, and please God will stand again. It said, Kol echad mare be'etzboi v'omer there. That was clear. You could point with your finger and you could say, that is where heaven meets earth. That's where the spiritual and the physical synthesize and come together. That's where I can actually see beyond any doubt that God and his world and nature and the physicality are one. Not just one over there, one everywhere. But that was the place where it was obvious and revealed. And then obviously after there was no Beit HaMikdash, when the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, so one of the things our sages say in Gemora is that after that, the place that Hashem has is the 4 cubits of Shulchan Aruch. The fact that everywhere in the world, everything is based on God's will, and we perform our mitzvahs and we do whatever we do, all our behavior is based on Hashem's will. That, as it's called figuratively, that 4 amot, 4 cubits of the laws of the Torah is where God dwells in this world. That's where you see the presence of Hashem. Is this what Hashem wants me to do, or is that what Hashem wants me to do? as he's asking over here, we mentioned other examples, but the example the Gemara opens up talking about tonight is what happens if a person goes and worships a bundle of wheat. So everybody has different things that they worship.
Bundle of wheat.
Wheat stalks.
Smoky.
Not weed.
Oh, weed. Almost. Okay. The same question would apply to weed.
Yeah.
Wheat, W-H-E-A-T. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wheat. And you're thinking of weed, W-E-E-D. But it's, look, it's the same thing. So this person goes and he worships stalks of wheat. And what happens with wheat afterwards? It gets harvested, it's ground and turned into flour. Now, in the Beis HaMikdash, one of the offerings that would bring was a korban mincha, an offering of flour. There were offerings of animals. There was offerings of beverages like libations, like we read in the Rosh Chodesh, the davening that we did today. It's beverage libation or yain, wine or mayim. Sometimes it was water in the time of Sukkot. So the question is, and then there was the mincha. The mincha was a meal offering. It was an offering made from grain. Sometimes it was wafers or some form of cake, and sometimes it was oil mixed in with the it's our baking.
Somebody's mocking you.
Yeah, somebody's copying. So the korban mincha, which is the meal offerings, were also holy. And this particular Gemara wanted to know that if a person worshipped the wheat, would you be allowed to use the meal or the flour? Where's it coming from? Let's see if we can. Participants. There we go. I think I've muted the participants. Okay. Mute all current and new participants. Perfect. Done. So if somebody worshipped the wheat, what would the story be? Would you be allowed to now take that wheat, grind it into flour, and make an offering for a mincha? And why is this question asked? The question is asked because the state of wheat is changed when it's turned into flour. It's a different thing. So the Gemara wants to know, boy Rami Bar Chama. Rami Bar Chama asked a question, if somebody bowed down to wheat stalks, mahu lemenachos, what is the ruling with regard to using these wheat stalks for meal offerings? Obviously, after they've been ground into flour. And what is, Gemara always unpacks the question after asking it. The question unpacked is there a difference in the fact that you've now ground it and changed its state? Because one of the things we mentioned earlier on was that when something's prohibited because it's considered avodah zarah, it's considered to be idolatry. Sometimes the changing of it, changing its state or its status from one form to another, could release it, could take it out of that problem. It could create something different. I'm sure you've all seen what's that meme that every box of raisins is the sad tale of grapes that could have been wine. Good for the nowadays. So when something is put in a totally different state, wheat stalks are turned into flour, the Gemara is asking over here, perhaps that change of status from the wheat stalks to the flour takes away the problem that originally those stalks were worshipped for idolatrous purposes. And in the words of the Gemara itself, yes, shinoi b'nevad, is there a shinoi, is there a concept of change in something that is served? In other words, there's the fact that its total state has been changed into meal or flour from being a plant, or ein shinoi b'nevad, or maybe there's no change in something that is served. What is the deal? What is the answer over here? Can you use flour, wheat flour that was manufactured from stalks, and those stalks were worshipped? So, just for a practical one in today's day and age, I don't know if you guys will recall that a few years ago, a controversy broke out over the hair that was used in ladies' shaitels. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hectic in the world.
What is
Because
it?
somebody came out and said that a lot of the hair is bought in India, is sourced in India, and a lot of the places that were supplying the hair came from temples where they were worshipping all kinds of strange stuff. And then the question became, was this hair defiled? In other words, had it been utilized in a way that could not be rescued and saved for use by Jewish people? Then the Gemora said, Omar Marzutra Braider of Nachman. So it goes to look in another place. You know, Gemora always works on a comparative basis. You want to find out if wheat stalks ground into flour are okay. The change of status makes a difference. You've got to look at another discussion and see if there's a comparison. Hence, the Gemora enters another discussion. What was the other discussion? The other discussion was discussing whether animals that became prohibited for use as offerings on the altar, what about Vladisei and their fetuses or their offspring? In other words, there are halachas, there are laws which tell us that for various reasons an animal can become prohibited for use on the Mizbeach, on the altar. And we're talking about other things, like sometimes an animal's prohibited for use on the altar because it had a blemish, a mum. They have to be complete. In fact, as we move towards Tisha B'Av, the famous story was that that's how this fellow Kamsa got the emperor of Rome to come after the Jewish people, because he went to him and he told him that he should send an animal as a gift to the Jewish people to be offered.
Instead of blemish.
And Kamsa, yeah, Kamsa Bar Kamsa. So basically, so what Kamsa did is he got the how would you call it, which one was? That was Bar Kamsa who did it. Bar Kamsa was the
one
fellow,
that
yeah.
got offended.
The one that got offended.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he went to the Roman emperor and he said, you need to send an offering, and I'm going to show you that the Jewish people will disgrace you. They won't offer your offering on the altar. And what he actually did was, on the way, he made a blemish, but he knew that it was the kind of blemish that in the world, in the secular world, wouldn't be considered an imperfection whatsoever. If you put that animal to auction in, how would you call it, in a regular market, it wouldn't be a problem. But in Jewish law, it would be a problem. And what he wanted to do, he wanted the rabbis to refuse to offer it, which is what happened. They didn't offer it. And then the emperor would be insulted. There's nothing worse than you send a gift, and the people, instead of being grateful, they send your gift back. In fact, his, how would you call it, one of the things that he said actually was, he spoke about Yain Nesach, he spoke about the wine, and he said, you know that if a fly ends up in the wine, then what the Jews do is they take the fly out the wine and they carry on drinking. But if the emperor should touch the wine, it's over. They won't drink it anymore. And, used various different methods to put us in a bad light. So there are various animals, coming back to that weren't allowed to be offered on the temple. Let's say an animal initially was a kosher animal and it didn't have a blemish, it didn't have a mum, but certain things, experiential things, happened to change the animal's status and make it prohibited. For example, an immoral person decided to do an act of bestiality with that animal. Sorry? Yeah, well, before it was used on the altar, obviously. But basically, because the person did that act with the animal, that animal now becomes impure for the altar. So even though it was before, now it isn't pure for the altar anymore. The other thing that could cause an animal to be disqualified is, again, if a person used it for avodah zarah, like they did with the lambs you were talking, Ephraim, before. The lambs in Egypt, or the cows in certain parts of the Asian world, if they started to worship the animal, then the worship of the animal, the fact that the animal is worshipped as a deity, would also disqualify it for use on the Mizbeach, on the altar, for use as an offering to serve Hashem. So those are two ways the animal could be disqualified. What if the animal is expecting, it's pregnant, and it has
that's only the actual animal, though.
The actual animal, yeah.
Not the range of animal.
Yeah, not the range, exactly.
Just
That
specific
animal,
one that
exactly, that specific animal. So basically, you have a cow or a bull or a sheep or a goat, whatever it is, and originally it was okay to be offered on the altar. whatever, let's say like today we have the Beth Din, the people that were in charge would check your animal and they tell you, can this animal be taken to the market and sold to somebody who wants to offer it on the altar as an offering? Yeah, we've checked it. It has no blemish. It's a kosher animal that passes. It ticks the blocks. It's okay. Then comes along some immoral person and jung. Now the animal's not okay for that purpose anymore. You can use it for other purposes, but for that purpose, that animal's not okay. And the same thing if somebody comes along and worships the animal. Then in that discussion, there was a discussion as well. What about if the animal's expecting? It's got a fetus, it's got a baby that's going to be born. And is the fetus in the same category as the mother? In other words, if the mother's disqualified, is the fetus disqualified? And in such a discussion, there was an opinion, there were some rabbis who said the vlad is not necessarily disqualified because the mother animal is disqualified. It could be that the fetus is still qualified. So that's what this discussion was about. And you'll see how from this discussion, he goes into the comparative to the wheat. Omar Marzutra Breder Rav Nachman. Marzutra, son of Rav Nachman, stated, Toshma, come and listen. Toshma always means I'll try and bring a proof. I'm going to try and answer the question. Kol hoasurin legaba mizbeach. Any of those animals that were declared prohibited for use on the altar, as we just gave examples, vladisayan mutarim, their fetuses or their babies that are born afterwards are not necessarily disqualified because they are. Vatani Allah, and concerning this ruling we learned, Rabbi Eliezer Oiser, Rabbi Eliezer deems it forbidden. So basically you had a machlokes, an argument between the rest of the rabbis and Rabbi Eliezer. The others said that the offspring's okay, and Rabbi Eliezer said not okay. So the Gemora wants to unpack it and understand more details. In other words, what the Gemara is going to discuss now is at what point did the animal become prohibited? Are we saying that somebody worshipped the animal or did something immoral to them? Then after that, the animal became pregnant. It was expecting, not from the person, from another animal. That wouldn't happen biologically. But either way, it developed a fetus, it developed a pregnancy afterwards. So in other words, at the time that this happened, the second animal, the pregnancy wasn't involved. Or is it the other way around? Are we saying that if the animal, that the problem is that when something negative happened to the animal, it was served as avodah zarah, or an immoral deed was done, it was already pregnant, and maybe the experience of the mother is considered to be the experience of the fetus. That because of the fact that something happened untoward to the mother, so whatever happened untoward spiritually also affects the baby, it affects the fetus. Beloved, itmar Allah. And didn't we learn regarding this? Omar Rav Nachman, Omar Rabba bar Abu. Rav Nachman said in the name of Rabba bar Abu, Machlokes, the argument that we mentioned above between Rabbi Eliezer and his colleagues is that when the animal was first defiled and then became pregnant, then there was a difference of opinion between them, that because the animal only became pregnant afterwards, does that defilement affect the pregnancy too? Rabbi Eliezer said, yes, it does. The animal was defiled, and therefore, even it became pregnant afterwards, the offspring or the fetus is a problem. And the rabbi said, no, it's got nothing to do with it. The defilement was first, and then the vlad is the offspring is a separate thing. So that is the parameters of the argument.
So the parameters is very clever.
Yeah.
This happened while the animal was already pregnant with the blood.
So according to Rav Nachman Omar Rabba, that they're actually arguing about the other way around. That first it was defiled and then it became pregnant. So in other words, the fetus did not experience the act of defilement. Only the mother did. And that's where they argue. But if Aval Ibrul of a safe nirbu, what you just mentioned now, if it became pregnant, and when it was already pregnant, something happened to defile it. In other words, it was literally carrying that baby at the time that somebody worshipped it or somebody defiled it. Divrei Hakol Asurin, everybody agrees that the fetus is prohibited just like the mother. So just to clarify it, now that he's mentioned both sides, what is being said over here is that if the animal was already pregnant when it became defiled, then the pregnancy is affected just like the animal's affected. And then the rabbis and Rabbi Eliezer wouldn't argue. Everybody agrees that just like the mother was affected, so the fetus is affected. Just like the mother's forbidden to be brought on the altar or used for holy purposes, the same with the baby. If it's born and survives and raised, it's also defiled. The only place the debate takes place between Rabbi Eliezer and the rabbis is when the pregnancy occurred post the defilement. According to the others, the defilement does not, in a future tense, affect the fetus. The defilement is one aspect of the animal. The pregnancy is another. There is a concept sometimes that something can be born from how would you call it, defiled situation, but also at the same time, it doesn't have to inherit that defilement. After all, as we know, it takes two animals to make a third animal. I mean, that's the story of mammals. So who says there's a problem with the father? There's no problem with the father. In this case, there was a problem only with, sorry?
Father was Jewish.
He was a Jewish ox. So we say, yeah. So we say that it's possible that if the animal was defiled and only afterwards became pregnant, the aspect in which it was defiled would not necessarily defile its offspring. And that was the view of the rabbis. Rabbi Eliezer said, even in this case, the animal is no good. And Rabbi Eliezer is stricter. He said it doesn't make a difference to him whether the animal was defiled before it became pregnant, whether the animal was defiled after it became pregnant. In either event, according to him, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So here we're saying what's good for the fetus is the same as the mom. Mom is a problem, baby's a problem. Mom's not a problem, baby's not a problem. And Rabbi Eliezer is not concerned with at what stage the mom became a problem. It was only the rabbis who said that it makes a difference to them whether the fetus was already being carried, the pregnancy was in existence already when the animal's defiled, because the way they see it is that if the animal's expecting, the fetus is an extension of the mother, and if the mother's being defiled, so is the baby, the potential baby. Gemora brings this all about. The Gemara wants to suggest that isn't our situation of stalks of wheat that somebody worshipped and then became ground, the same as an animal with a fetus inside. What's the difference? Ground, not ground. The wheat was inside, the flour was inside the stalk. How do you make flour? You're basically grinding it. You're taking and putting it one side. You're taking the product that is that can be edible and usable and putting it another side. And this is becoming your food or your flour. Like there are many types of food in the world, that the way in which you, how would you call it? You prepare it by distilling it in the pot that you want, taking the nuts out the shell or the seed out the shell. And it doesn't matter that it's changed to flour. That flour was inside the stalks, just like this baby was inside its mother. And the Gemara rejects this and says, not the same thing. How can you in that case, whether the fetus in a mother or not, it starts out as an animal. miles down to a park. You can still keep it to love it. Yeah. No, we should.
Still a few years to go to the year 6.